Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, just staring at your phone. It's your 18th birthday. You're waiting to suddenly feel like this, financially capable adult. So you wait, and literally nothing happens. There's no magical download of knowledge, no sudden light bulb moment of exactly how a mortgage works.
Because here's the ultimate reality check. Turning 18 changes absolutely nothing internally. Actually, you're probably already inside the financial system right now, maybe using a debit card or buying stuff online. But 18 unlocks the heavy machinery. Suddenly the doors fly up into bank accounts, paychecks, credit cards, auto loans, and honestly, way bigger financial mistakes. The system basically treats you like an expert the very second the clock strikes midnight.
And that right there is exactly why waiting until you're officially an adult to learn this stuff is a massive trap. Studies actually show a meaningful chunk of 15-year-olds haven't reached basic financial literacy proficiency yet, meaning they can't quite apply money knowledge to real-world situations. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, financial capability doesn't just spawn overnight. It builds gradually. It relies on three main building blocks: your executive function, your habits and norms, and your decision-making skills. So if you wait until adulthood to figure this out, you're trying to learn it way after your habits have already taken shape.
Now, this knowledge gap isn't exactly a new discovery. It's been documented for decades, with historical data like the Jumpstart surveys from way back between 1997 and 2008 showing a persistent lack of preparation. But the stakes? They are so much higher now. If you aren't prepared early, you're going to fall way behind, because young people today are entering the credit system much earlier. Look at this. 10 years ago, in 2013, 61% of 22 to 24-year-old millennials had a credit card. Fast forward to 2023, and 84% of Gen Z at that exact same age have one. You guys are inside the system earlier, and you're leaning on it a lot harder.
And let's be super clear. This shift is absolutely not happening because Gen Z is just suddenly more reckless than older generations. It's driven by a pretty harsh structural economic reality. Over the past decade, inflation has driven the consumer price index up by a staggering 32%. The cost of literally just existing has completely surged.
With the cost of living skyrocketing like that, younger consumers entering the workforce with entry-level salaries are practically forced to use credit cards and loans just to cover basic everyday necessities. Like TransUnion notes, they're using credit to bridge their financial needs. Because of this really tough credit environment, young adults are carrying balances earlier, and they're facing higher delinquency rates than older borrowers did when they were at this exact same stage of life.
But we need to bust a massive myth right here, right now. You might hear people claim that Gen Z is the most indebted generation. That is simply not true. Look at the Experian data for 2025. Gen Z carries an average credit card balance of around $3,493. Millennials are higher, sitting at $6,961. But older generations, specifically Gen X, they still carry vastly larger average balances, topping out at $9,600. So yes, young people have earlier access and rising utilization, but they definitely do not hold the largest debt burdens.
Okay, some good news though. The education system is finally waking up to this early access problem. Across the US, 39 states now actually mandate some form of personal finance course in order to graduate high school, which is a huge shift toward getting you prepared before that 18th birthday hits. However, just having a mandate isn't magic. A requirement doesn't automatically equal capability. The Council for Economic Education points out that just stuffing a few financial concepts into a math or civics class isn't enough to actually change habits. It's those rigorous, standalone courses that show real, positive impacts on behavior. Well-implemented, dedicated classes are the ones that actually lead to better financial decisions in adulthood, like successfully paying down debt or surviving random economic shocks.
Which brings us right to your pre-18 financial playbook. Before we jump into the rules, a really quick caveat. Exact laws about credit scores, taxes, legal ages, and banking systems vary wildly depending on what country you live in. But the underlying skills, things like managing your spending, understanding risk, and interest, those are completely universal. So here are your 5 practical, non-negotiable rules to make sure you have the upper hand before you're handed the keys to your financial life. Rule number 1, know exactly where your money goes. We just talked about inflation, right? Because volatile prices on everyday items, your rent and cars, are taking an ever greater share of young incomes, your paycheck will quietly just vanish before you even notice it's gone. You literally cannot make smart money moves if you aren't tracking your actual spending.
Moving to Rule 2, understand interest before you borrow. Right now, the average credit card interest rate is hovering around a whopping 22%. Listen,
Interest is an incredibly powerful tool. It can work beautifully for you when you save, but it works violently against you when you borrow.
Here is the real danger of a 22% rate. Let's say you buy something for $50. If you don't pay off your credit card balance in full that month, that 22% annual percentage rate acts like a turbocharger. It turns a cheap, basic expense into this massive financial burden that swells exponentially over time. You are no longer just paying for the item, you're paying a massive premium just for the privilege of borrowing that money.
Which leads us straight into Rule 3. Approval is not affordability. Just because a bank algorithm approves you for a credit card or an auto lender says, hey, you're approved for this car loan, does not mean you can actually afford those monthly payments. The bank is calculating their risk. They are not looking at your personal living expenses. You always have to run your own math to see if it actually fits your life.
Rule 4, build a small cash buffer before you start chasing those exciting investment returns. Why? Because as recent history clearly proves, sudden economic shocks are absolutely going to happen. TransUnion found that 75% of surveyed Gen Z consumers said their finances were negatively impacted by the pandemic-induced recession. A cash buffer is your shield, so you don't have to fall back on those 22% credit cards when an emergency inevitably strikes.
And finally, Rule 5, question financial advice. You are going to be completely bombarded with scrolling feeds of conflicting money tips, viral hacks, and crazy crypto promises. You must evaluate the source. Ask yourself, who truly benefits from giving me this advice? Are they just trying to sell me a course? Is this verifiable fact or just someone's really loud opinion? Never, ever take financial advice without looking under the hood first.
The financial system is literally just waiting for you to turn 18. It is not going to hold your hand, and frankly, it profits off your mistakes. Now, you don't need to know every single financial law at 18, but you absolutely need to know enough not to be easily exploited. So, the only question left is this. Are you learning enough right now to manage the system, or are you going to let the system manage you?